promise I'm not going to make a habit of doing boxing videos, but for two reasons I'm doing a follow-up to the fight last night. One, I'm still buzzing off it, to be honest. Such an incredible fight, such a surprising and amazing fight in many respects, but just a joyous occasion for fight fans and particularly British fight fans. The second is that I've been sat in an airport for the last few hours stewing over my ideas on the fight and everything around it, because my flight's delayed. So, a few points. First of all, was Wilder injured, or was that significant? He probably was injured to some degree. Most fights, fighters have niggles, and I dare say he had one or two going into the fight. He didn't look probably 100%, but then no fight is ever 100% going into the fight. I don't think anything that comes out will really explain or really kind of cover up his limitations, from the bell, Fury, and his attitude and his front foot approach and his willingness to take the fight to Wilder was clear, and it was pretty clear that Wilder couldn't handle it. Now, whether or not he sustained a couple more injuries along the way, clearly an ear injury or whatever, perforated eardrum or whatever, that's possible, but for me, you only have to watch the first 2 or 3 minutes of the fight to know that the belief had been knocked out of him very, very quickly by a guy who wasn't going to get beaten last night in Tyson Fury. Second point, Ben Davison got dropped by Tyson Fury in favour of going with the Kronk gym with Sugar Hill, Stewart and Andy Lee, and that proved to be a really good decision. But I just would make the point that Ben Davison's game plan last time was probably the right game plan for a Tyson Fury coming back off 900 days out of the ring. If he'd have gone at Wilder back in 2018 like he did last night, he wouldn't have lasted more than 4 or 5 rounds himself, despite the fact he's very durable and he could probably fight all night on the tiles outside a pub. I don't think he's the kind of guy who at the very highest level would have been able to deal with that. And if he saw the condition that Wilder was in the 12th round and the threat that he still carried with his right hand, I think Tyson Fury wouldn't have seen the 12th round if he'd have gone out there and swung hard. He wasn't punching hard enough. He didn't have the condition to keep up that work rate. And Ben Davison's game plan for him then was the right game plan, the right part of Tyson Fury's journey to greatness, because that's where he finds himself now. So just a few props to Ben Davison on that one. What's next? Loads and loads of ideas being muted about, but I would hazard a guess at this one. I think Wilder needs a rest. I think there's enough money and will around the negotiating table from AJ's camp and from Fury's camp, and enough marbles to fight for, and certainly enough money to fight for there to be a deal cut for Wilder to fight the winner, for everyone to get paid very handsomely, and for the world to see the fight that it needs. Because if it misses, if they miss the boat this year, I suspect that fight will become less and less of an attraction. So that's what I think might happen, because I feel like Fury wants it. I feel like AJ will be motivated after last night's fight, because he probably will have seen things about Fury which, despite the impressive performance, they might have encouraged him. In terms of who wins that fight, AJ would present a tougher obstacle than Wilder provided last night. AJ's tougher, rougher and more adaptable in terms of his technique. He showed that he can box. He's got a good trainer in Rob McCracken, game plan wise, and helping him to set up a little bit more measured work than Deontay Wilder. His feet aren't that brilliant, to be honest, and for those reasons I think he would have it in the trenches with Fury, and it might well be fun to watch. But I think Fury would probably box a little bit more clever, and whilst he might smell, he'd probably have the same game plan as he had last night. If he smells an opportunity, he'd go after it. If he didn't smell the opportunity, I think he'd romp a 12-round decision. I think he beats him either way. But AJ would be a tougher fight, and it's a fight that I would absolutely love to see, because for me that would be a really entertaining one, and those two would at times, without a doubt, trade leather and have us all on the edge of our seats. Is he just going to have the 3 fights he's talked about, or is he going to kick on? The one thing that I think most people would, or the one conclusion that most people would draw from last night's fight was actually maybe we've only seen 70 or 80% of what Tyson Fury's capable of, and maybe he's got more gears to go through. And if he'd have had more than 7 or 8 weeks with Sugar Hill and Andy Lee, maybe he'd been punching even harder. Maybe that one punch power might have been there. Maybe he would have got the job done in 2 or 3 rounds. Maybe there's the conditioning, nutrition, weight management, all of those aspects. He can find more marginal gains. His belief is always going to be there, but perhaps he's just coming into his prime now. So is it only going to be 3 fights? I don't know. I think the one thing that I would suggest it isn't going to be more than 3 fights, or one of the factors that might influence it, is that Sugar Hill said last night that he's considering quitting and just going back and training in the Kronk gym in Detroit, or Kronk fighters in Detroit, and potentially the next crop of amateurs there, rather than deal with the big stuff. So if that happened, then it'd be interesting to see what impact that would have on Fury's decisions moving forward. But I certainly think that he could fight beyond 3 fights for sure. Just when you look at his 2 fights against Deontay Wilder, because they've shown what an adaptable fighter he is, and last night showed that perhaps he's got a little bit more pop and the capability to pull out a bit more pop in the future than he's tapped into so far. The one fighter out there on the horizon I think is going to be a threat for all of these boys in maybe 18 months, 2 years, is Daniel Dubois. He's got a tough fight against Joe Joyce, who I think is a fringe world level fighter, not far off the world top 10, really durable guy, and if Dubois comes through that like he came through Nathan Gorman last year, I really feel like he's a guy who would cause all 3 of them problems. Maybe not quite at Fury's level, but I could see him beating Wilder and AJ. That's how highly I rate Dubois, and I mean within a year, 18 months. So he might be the heir to the throne. And again, that might be a reason why perhaps Fury doesn't continue beyond, or he might continue to get better, and you might see them two mix it and put on a really good fight as well. But regardless, Tyson Fury is an absolute superstar. I didn't live through Muhammad Ali's era. It's very difficult to compare these guys with the likes of Fraser, Foreman, Holmes, those kind of guys from the 70s. But in my opinion, Tyson Fury is getting very close to Muhammad Ali territory in so many ways. He's one of the most intelligent guys in the room, press conferences. He's brilliant with the media. He's clearly the most talented boxer of his generation as a heavyweight, by far as a boxer. He's probably the best fighter. He is the best fighter. He probably maybe just lacks a little bit of power, but we saw last night he's got a little bit more power than I certainly thought he had. I thought he'd stop him in 11, and he got the job done in 7, and probably it should have been 5 or 6, because I thought that Wilder's corner should have pulled him out. So all hail Tyson Fury the King, because for me that was just absolutely phenomenal. Proud to be a Brit, proud to be on the Fury bandwagon, and I can't wait to see what happens next. It might be a little bit of time before anything materialises now, so I'm going to crawl back underneath my stone, and if anyone is listening to this out there, you're not going to hear from me for a while again on this. So enjoy the other fights, and enjoy Joyce, Dubois, and all the other fights that are coming up in 2020, because it'll be a while before the heavyweights mix it again. All right, have a good week, everyone.